Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the Woo Curious podcast. Your map to the mystical, your key to the sacred, and your guide back home to yourself. I'm Eileen, a writer, a spiritual coach, energy healer, and slow living witch. This podcast is your invitation to explore a world where the mundane and the sacred intertwine. It's a haven for those ready to take the first steps into the realms of magic and mystery, providing a safe space for you to embark on your own enchanted journey towards healing and self-discovery. Here, I'll unveil the whispers of the mystical, the rituals often hidden in plain sight, and I'll engage in sacred conversation intended to stir your soul and lead you back into your power. I'm all about demystifying woo and witchcraft. So, whether you're a seasoned seeker or simply woo curious, I'm so delighted you've decided to join me on this journey. Let's make magic. Hello, Woo Crew, and welcome back to another episode of the Woo Curious podcast. I am your host, Eileen, and as you might be able to see if you're watching this, I am in my pajamas. Maybe you can't tell, they're quite nice pajamas. It is Saturday morning, and I'm dropping in to record a quick episode to find its way to your ears for Monday because that's the kind of week I've had, and because I have some things that I definitely want to say. I didn't want to miss a week, despite this being a little bit later than I might usually record. I've got a few more guest episodes lined up as well that I could have dropped in, but it feels important to speak to this topic that I have been swirling around in my head and trying to find a way to approach that is compassionate, that leads with harmlessness, knowing that it might be a little bit triggering for some of my listeners. It certainly is a topic that was a little bit triggering for me when I first started to dance with it. And so I just want to offer, before I even dive in here, that I am holding no judgment. I know that the unpopular opinion takes and saying things with some judgment in our voices is a really good way to get clicks and likes and interaction on Instagram. And I just cannot bring myself to do it, no matter how many business coaches tell me to be controversial. I hold controversial opinions, and some of them I feel like are firmly rooted in a space of truly holding life in all of its forms in highest regard. And I'm not afraid to speak my mind, but I am conscious of the fact that most of us are doing the best we have with what we've got, with what we know and we've learned. And so if anything that I am sharing about or touching on kind of touches a nerve for you today, know that I am speaking from a place of having been one of these spiritual girlies. If you looked at the title, you'll know what I'm going to be talking about today. I've been there and I've wanted to be there, and I've wanted what that space has to offer. And so there is, again, absolutely no judgment here. I simply want to open an awareness and a dialogue and a discussion in compassionate curiosity for all of us around the marketing and the sometimes very exploitative and co-optive practices of this spiritual girly world. And so what do I mean when I say spiritual girlies? You probably have an image that pops to your mind, right? She's white. She probably has long hair. She wears flowing robes. She likely leads yoga retreats, and she's probably got a bundle of sage that she's burning at her ceremonies. And none of this is inherently wrong, although I think I have spoken to smoke medicine appropriation on here before, and I'm going to be touching on that today. I also recorded a whole video about smoke medicine traditions for those of you who are really wanting to create and cultivate your own practice of smoke medicine without being culturally appropriative. And so I'm going to link that new resource below for you as well. Of course, it's free. But, in essence, this idea of finding a path into spirituality, learning from other cultures and traditions, especially for those of us in North America, and I suspect into Europe to some extent as well, but especially here on Turtle Island, and I will call it that for today, or so-called Canada, so-called United States. These lands where there are a lot of white settlers, colonialists, who have been divorced from their own Indigenous knowledge and ways of being and moving in the world and traditions for centuries sometimes. There is this kind of grasping at finding ways to infuse life with meaning, and a lot of folks have found it in other spiritual traditions that I'm going to go out on a limb here and say do not belong to us. And now, that's not to say that we can't ethically engage with them, learn from them, perhaps even become practitioners and teachers of these traditions. And I think that it's really important, if we are going to be doing these kinds of things, to acknowledge the history, the roots, the peoples from whom these traditions arose, because often, especially in our own societies, they're the peoples who are the most marginalized and the most socioeconomically less privileged, or even just socially less privileged, because they are often not white, right? Peoples of color, Indigenous folks, Indian folks, and specifically from India. I hope all of you listening know that I refer to those from India when I say Indian folks. I'm thinking of yoga there, right? Asian folks, we've got lots of Chinese traditions. And again, I think that there is definitely space, because we are all human on this earth, and there is wisdom in so many traditions. I think there's definitely space for us to ethically acquire some of this knowledge and be able to share and spread it. But I think we just really, there's a need to be more conscious of how we're doing it, how we're profiting off it, while the peoples whose traditions we're profiting off of remain in poverty often. And here I'm really thinking about the Indigenous peoples of North America and the genocide that's been enacted on them for so many years since white settlers arrived. Really, we think about all of the missing and murdered Indigenous women and the mass graves that are being found at all of the old school sites in Canada. There's a lot of really proximal, it's not distant past, it was happening until quite recently in the scheme of history and the lived experience of generations, harm that has been caused. And now we've got, a large brigade of white women in yoga studios smudging the space before a class begins or during a class, and not acknowledging that the word smudge is not ours to use. I've read a few Indigenous authors now who are so generous in their wisdom and their desire to share the magic of their traditions. And I'm thinking of Asha Frost here right now. She wrote "You Are the Medicine," which is clearly to be read by more than just Indigenous folks. It is for everyone. And she has a really beautiful section on why the term smudge and burning white sage is a sacred practice to Indigenous peoples on Turtle Island. And so this is one of those practices I often come around to, right? If you've got a sage bundle, which if you're listening to this, there's a real good chance you do, don't beat yourself up. Don't go throw it out by any means. You have it. I think there's something in honoring that plant and the medicine of that plant. I don't think that it's deserves to be discarded, unless perhaps you might want to crumble it up and offer it to some outdoor plants. That would be a lovely way to honor the plant. And, there's lots of cases where we are gifted white sage, or where people may gift you white sage, or perhaps you want to support an Indigenous owned store and you're purchasing white sage. I think those are those cases where it's okay to engage, but again, avoiding some of those appropriative terms. So the term smudge, for instance, we should be saying, if we are not of Indigenous tradition, smoke medicine is a much better term, or you can look up your own ancestral terminology for smoke medicine, because most peoples have burned herbs or resins or incenses as part of their spiritual practice through history. And so, for instance, in the Celtic lens, the word or the term is saining. So we would sain a room instead of smudge a room. So just some things to think about there and to chew on. And the reason that it's coming up for me at this moment is because of this tension that I'm feeling and noticing inside of myself as I open the doors, and they are open, to the Wise Wild Woman Mentorship program once again. They will be open through the month of April, and the doors will close again with Beltane. And so if you're curious to join us inside, joining now means you get a bonus month, whether you're joining for a season or for the full year, a full turn of the wheel. And as these doors are open, I'm sitting with the tension of really wanting to be conscious of how I am showing up and marketing, and that's the word, this space. There's this real understanding or sense of my privilege as a white woman raised in an affluent society with a real safety net. And so much of this space of the coaching / spiritual industry world that I'm part of feels really ick to me. Not just again, I'm going to use spiritual girlies here, and please, no, I'm not meaning any offense, but not just that kind of co-opting of sacred Indigenous and ancient Asian and Indian practices for profit, but also the world of coaching. And I do coaching inside of Wise Wild Woman. Everybody gets a one-on-one with me each season. You have access to me via WhatsApp in the group chat. I'm always there for extra support if and when needed. And so much of the life coaching industry is really based on this exploitative, extractive, capitalist foundation. And I've had this push-pull of, okay, how do I navigate this world? Because I know that there are so many of us, especially on Turtle Island, if we are white settlers or colonialist descendants, are feeling this disconnect. And that's why we've gone to these other traditions. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that seeking. I think it's a real indicator that we've lost something almost imperative, essential for human thriving and life. That sense of deeper meaning and magic and purpose that comes with so many of these traditions. That's why they're so life-changing. And it's why so many folks have, gone to a retreat or taken a training and then been like, oh my gosh, I need to share this. It's coming from a place of deep compassion. And it also is upholding a lot of those things that are really sitting uneasily with me, and I know not just with me, around, okay, what is this lifestyle we're upholding? This still quite individualistic, often very much buy more, follow the spiritual quest, manifest your dream life. And what does your dream life look like? And for so many people, understandably, the dream life looks, we think, like what we've been sold for so long, right? We've been sold the idea that we need the things, the trappings of a modern life, or that's what the desire and the goal is. And I think what I'm really finding is, okay, yes, acknowledging that is part of what people do desire, and part of that is the comfort of it, right? There's a peacefulness about it. But then turning around and saying, okay, but what is it that truly makes a meaningful, magical life? And so much of that is connection to each other in community, in human communities, connection to our bodies and her wisdom, and connection to the more than human world, the animated world around us, the plants, the animals, the very earth upon which we stand, the ancestral rock that we step upon every day. And it's in those connections that we really find true joy, true magic, and true meaning. And so this is a very rambling, clearly didn't have notes. Thank you for sticking with me. But a really rambling kind of way of saying, I don't know where the comfortable, quote unquote, marketing space lies, but I do know that I'm not offering manifest your dream life the way so many others are. I'm offering a space of community and witnessing and holding space for and being with the discomfort and the uncomfortable parts of being a human on this planet in this very momentous and unstable and in a lot of ways scary times. And also recognizing that to be a human on this planet means to be in unprecedented times. Like, there's always been something, and we have this sense that it's not been this bad before, but it has if we look back through history. And so, again, how do we navigate this space? A new purse, or even a new beautiful crystal with healing properties, is not going to improve your life the way that connecting with others, creating communities of sisterhood and support and witnessing, being held in that space of liminality in a lot of ways, the compost heap, if you will, of navigating all of these shifting territories together. This is what will get us through these times, and it is what creates meaning. Okay, I feel like I'm talking in circles now. So, my beef with spiritual girlies. My beef is only that so often those of us in privileged positions do not take the time, or because of the discomfort, choose not to take the time to really look at the practices that we're engaging in, the words we're using, the ways in which we're profiting off a system that truly does favor us. And you'll know if you've been here for very long, I'm a staunch feminist. And so, yes, women in general, the inequality is there. We are not privileged the way white men are privileged, but white women are so privileged. And I know that I'm probably stumbling my way through this, and I just want to recognize that too. I think it can be such an uncomfortable conversation, and there's fear sometimes in speaking about it, because there's fear that we might speak about it wrong or say something that furthers the harm. And so I just want to acknowledge that my intention is to open the dialogue, to create some awareness, and just to share what my own struggles are in this sphere as we navigate. And also to say, again, I think one of the pathways forward is for those of us who are in this position to not only acknowledge the practices that come from other traditions, but to seek out the wisdom and the knowledge of our own wisdom traditions, because they exist. And so, especially if you are of any kind of Celtic descent or heritage, and even just European, we do explore some of that. But I'm really drawn to my Celtic heritage. A lot of my blood comes from those Celtic lands, not all of it, but much of it. And so that is one of the avenues that I am exploring personally to add magic and meaning, to find the practices to create a spiritual and connected life. And all of the things that I learn in all of my various explorations, I share as well, especially inside the Wise Wild Woman Mentorship, but certainly in other avenues as well. So, if you're still with me, thank you. And I would really love to engage on this topic further. And so whether you're watching on YouTube, you can certainly leave me a comment there and I will happily go back and forth with you in that space. You can come on over to Instagram at I am Eileen March and send me a DM, or you can send me an email, eileen@myluminouslife.ca. I would just really love to know, how did this episode land for you? Did it stir anything up? Did you feel a bit uncomfortable? And how are you holding yourself in that discomfort? If you feel the need for any support, please don't hesitate to reach out, and know again that it is with compassion, curiosity, zero judgment, all of the harmlessness I can muster that I am navigating these conversations. I see you. I've been you. In many cases, I still am you. And I'm here with you on this path, finding a way forward. Okay, next week I will be back again with another guest episode. And I hope that you will tune in, and I'll see you here next week. Bye for now.